So here's the latest. My brother just proposed to my fiancée, who happens to be his ex, right in front of my family, and I'm beyond furious. I, 28M, have a brother named Jake, 26M, who dated my fiancée, Emily, 26F, about a year back. Just to give you a bit of background, they were together in August 2022. They lasted just a month before he ended it, claiming he was tired of being in a relationship and never had any intention of settling down in the first place. Back when they were dating, I was in another state, so I had no clue he even had a girlfriend. I didn't know who Emily was until I actually met her. So I was at this bar in October after moving back, and I totally clicked with Emily. It was awesome. She was definitely the most stunning and smart woman I've ever encountered, and we hung out a few more times before we decided to make it official. So here we are in December, and I finally mentioned her to my family, suggesting they meet her during Christmas. They were aware I was seeing someone, but I'm not exactly the type to share every little detail about my personal life. I kept things pretty vague about her until I figured out how serious we actually were. So my parents wanted to check out my phone, and next thing I know, they were all passing it around the dinner table. Jake found out and totally lost it, calling me a terrible brother for dating his ex and insisting that I end things with her. I said no. I asked Emily about it, and she totally confirmed they dated and spilled the tea on their breakup details. After a couple of weeks, Jake finally stopped mentioning my relationship with his ex, and I figured he had moved on. This year on Emily's birthday, I treated her to an upscale dinner with our families and her closest friends, and I popped the question. Jake lost it again over my proposal to her, and my sisters and I quickly put an end to that. This past weekend, something went down. Jake had been keeping a low profile about the whole situation for the past couple of months. I hadn't seen him around much and thought he was keeping his distance, which was fine by me, honestly. Then out of the blue, he invited me and Emily over for a family dinner at his place with my parents and sisters. I found it kind of strange, but since my parents and sisters were all going too, we decided to go together. The dinner was chill, nothing over the top, and then we headed to the living room to chat. So like 30 minutes into our usual chat, Jake suddenly gets up and says he has something to share. He went on this lengthy spiel about how grateful he was to have his family there for his big moment, then dropped to one knee and whipped out this totally underwhelming ring while popping the question to Emily. Emily was clearly perplexed and visibly uneasy, insisting that he put it away and get up. My dad went for Jake, but I beat him to it and threw a punch. I won't go over everything again, mainly because I was too furious to pay attention to most of it. But he mentioned something about wanting to prove that Emily wasn't genuinely interested in me and was just trying to get back at him. Just before things escalated, my parents hurried me away and assured me they would have a word with him. It's been a few days since it went down, and I'm still really annoyed. I'm honestly at a loss here. I'm really worried that Emily might be having doubts about marrying me because of this. Looking for some tips. Update. Appreciate you taking the time to read and reply. I checked out the comments from last night to this morning, and some solid points were brought up. No updates here, as the only ones I've chatted with since that dinner are Emily and my little sister. I'd like to clear up some points I noticed in the comments. 1. So Emily and I just got engaged. It was that vibe where we both understood we were in it for the long haul. I'm totally confident in her, no doubt about it. 2. I was the one who made the first move when we met. She didn't approach me at all. I can't say for sure if she had any idea or even a hunch that we were connected. I asked about it after discovering they were dating, and she said she had no clue. I didn't have a reason to doubt that, but I have to say, Jake's apparent overreaction definitely raises some concerns. 3. I totally didn't know she was dating Jake when I first met her. Jake and I really don't have much of a connection. We were close once, but as time went on, we started to drift apart, and our conversations became less frequent. Before I moved back, our conversations were pretty sparse, only happening on special occasions like our birthdays. Emily had heard about my family, but she didn't know much until I finally felt ready to bring them into the picture. When she and Jake met again, I didn't pick up on any lingering feelings from either side. She was friendly enough, not treating him like a total stranger, but she definitely kept things from getting too cozy. 4. I heard this thing was only a month-long relationship. I honestly didn't think I had to get Jake's approval to propose to her, but maybe I misjudged that one. I have my doubts. So I'm thinking of having a chat with Jake this weekend to get everything out in the open and see what's really going on. I totally dropped the ball by not asking for his perspective on their relationship. That's on me for not doing my homework. If anything significant or eye-opening goes down, I'll keep you posted. For the moment, that's everything I've got. Threads where the original poster has chimed in. Ignore the "but he's family" arguments. Luckily, I haven't had to deal with the whole family drama too much. Just my mom and a couple of aunts. They understand me well enough to realize that our relationship doesn't warrant me tolerating his disrespect, particularly when it comes to my fiancé. They'd just be talking to a wall about my fiancé. Honestly, I really doubt she'll go back. Looks like she's not a fan of him either, haha. Here's the first update. Thanks a ton to everyone for taking the time to read this. It's been a hectic weekend, so I haven't been able to respond to everyone, but I did update the original post with answers to the most frequently asked questions I noticed in the comments. Thanks once more. I'm grateful for everything, including the critiques. So, here's the latest. I hit up Jake and asked him to swing by my place for a chat. I mentioned that I'd rather have Emily join us for the conversation, but I was totally fine if he preferred to go without her. He said he would chat with us and actually came over to my place around noon today. There was a brief lull before I jumped into the discussion. I said sorry for not giving him a heads up about proposing to Emily, and I also apologized for hitting him. He was like, "It's whatever," but he did appreciate the apology. I shared with him what Emily mentioned regarding the relationship and the breakup when I inquired about it, and I asked him to verify if it was accurate. I basically pointed out that his reaction during this whole situation has been over the top, and I wanted to ensure I wasn't misinterpreting their relationship or minimizing how serious it actually was. He said they were only together for a couple of weeks before he decided to end things because he just wasn't feeling it anymore. Jet questioned whether his behavior stemmed from lingering feelings or regrets about their breakup. He mentioned that he could acknowledge finding her more attractive than he did the last time they met, but he had no feelings or regrets about it. He mentioned that he wasn't comfortable seeing a girl he briefly dated with his older brother, and as a guy, I shouldn't have crossed the line by going after his ex. I pointed out that I had no clue they were an item, so it wasn't like I was intentionally doing this with their past in mind. He brushed me aside and claimed it wasn't important. I really should have ended things anyway. He was totally convinced that if the situation were flipped, he would have acted the same way. But I really don't buy that. I asked him what made him propose to her if he didn't still have any feelings left over. So to break it down, he was chatting with a friend who was there during the time Jake and Emily were together. The friend suggested that maybe Emily had known all along that they were related and was doing this as some sort of revenge, especially since Emily had still been into Jake after their breakup. So he and his buddy figured it would be interesting to put their theory to the test. He decided to propose and find out if she would ditch me for him. Jet wanted him to explain why he believed she was still into him, and he mentioned that he had heard she was inquiring about him after their breakup and still frequenting the spots they used to visit together, so he thought it was a reasonable conclusion. So when she suddenly showed up with his brother, it totally confirmed what he had been thinking. Emily mentioned that she had only inquired about him once after the breakup. She pointed out that she had been frequenting those spots with friends long before they got together, and she wasn't going to steer clear of them just because things ended. She also mentioned that she was insulted by the notion that she would stoop so low as to chase after me just to get back at him. He shrugged and offered a half-hearted apology, insisting she needed to understand his perspective. He asked her if she genuinely had no idea, and she replied that she hadn't noticed any resemblance until they were together in the same room. She pointed out that they acted nothing alike, so it never occurred to her. He just said okay. That basically closed the discussion. Before he left, he mentioned that I could rescind his wedding invite since he struggles to support our relationship, given that he used to date her. I let him know he shouldn't stress about it, since he was probably going to be uninvited regardless. It's been a couple of hours since we chatted, and honestly, I'm feeling a lot better now. My parents aren't thrilled about him being uninvited, but they get that it was a mutual choice and likely the best move. My sisters said they totally get why I don't want him at the wedding, since he clearly doesn't have a good reason for being such a jerk. For the time being, I'm planning to cut back on communication with Jake, and honestly, I don't think he'll be getting in touch with me anytime soon either. Thanks a ton to everyone for reading and dropping comments. If anything major goes down, I'll keep you all in the loop. Threads where the original poster has chimed in. Why was she unaware of your family? At the start of our relationship, we really didn't dive into talking about my family. I moved out to escape my parents, but at my sister's urging, I began to reconcile and ultimately decided to move back home. I was upfront about not having a close relationship with them when Emily inquired, and she seemed fine with being kept in the loop given the situation. Here's the second update. Just a heads up, the original poster shared both updates in one post. But to make it clear, Update 3 took place roughly 2 weeks after Update 2. He merged both updates into a single post. If I had to take a shot at it, I'd say it was likely due to one of his posts getting taken down or caught in some sort of moderation hold on a forum. I can't share this in the usual spot, so I'm putting it here on my profile for anyone who might want to catch up on the latest. It's been a minute since I last shared, but a few things have gone down since my last chat with Jake. I've been keeping my distance from Jake since we last talked. We haven't reached out to each other at all, and the only times we've interacted have been during family gatherings. So my mom is pretty bummed that Jake is still not on the guest list for my wedding. It all kicked off with something said at my younger sister Lily's birthday celebration, where she turned 22. So her boyfriend, who she's been with for about 4 years, popped the question at the end of the night. We all gathered around and chatted about her dream wedding ideas. She shared some thoughts on wanting a destination wedding, including her ideas for the cake and dress. Then she casually mentioned, "Ryan, I know, but you won't mind if he comes to mine, right?" I just chuckled and said there's no way I could get upset about her guest list, even if I tried. My mom shot me this strange look and asked if Jake was still off the guest list for my wedding. I said yes, and she seemed really annoyed. She said she thought I was just kidding and claimed I was being unreasonable for wanting to ban him from the wedding since he's family. She called me out for supposedly holding a grudge just to be spiteful. I pointed out that we had both agreed he wouldn't be coming. I told her that this really wasn't the moment to discuss my wedding because the day was all about Lily. If Jake or she wants to chat about my wedding, they can reach out to me later. Lily really went after my mom for trying to turn her special day into something about Jake, and my mom just let it go. Just a heads up for anyone curious, Jake didn't show up to Lily's party because he had to work and couldn't get there. A couple of days later, my mom swung by my place and mentioned she wanted to chat about my wedding. She wanted to know why I was so insistent on Jake not being invited to my wedding. She mentioned that I really shouldn't be so insecure about Jake and Emily's past relationship, and that uninviting him was definitely over the line. I let her know that Jake and I came to a mutual decision about him not attending the wedding, and if he has an issue with it, he can talk to me directly. We had a disagreement, and she claimed that if I didn't re-invite Jake, she wouldn't attend either, accusing me of ostracizing her son. I just shrugged and said that if that's how she feels, she can throw her invite away because I'm not going to beg her to show up. She wanted to know if I'd genuinely be fine with her skipping out, and I reminded her that this wouldn't be the first time she's blown off one of my events because of Jake. She called me an for bringing up her past mistakes, and then she just stormed out. So I started getting a bunch of messages and calls from her and some family members about the whole thing, insisting I was in the wrong and pushing me to invite Jake just to avoid any drama. Emily's been getting messages from my mom asking her to chat with me and try to change my mind, but as far as I know, she hasn't replied. It looks like the majority of my mom's family is backing her up by not showing up, while my dad's side, which consists of just my aunt, uncle, and their 2 kids, is on my side and still planning to attend. My sisters are definitely still coming to the wedding, and of course Emily's family will be there too. I also chatted with Jake about it and asked him if he was cool with not getting an invite. He mentioned that he uninvited himself initially and can't understand why they're making such a fuss since he still has no interest in attending. He said to keep him out of the drama because he's not part of it, and he claims he'd say the same to her. Right now, I'm keeping things low-key with my mom, but my relationship with my dad is still pretty good. I'm still weighing the option of re-inviting my mom and her family if they decide to backtrack on the boycott, but honestly, the odds are slim. I mentioned this to my dad, and he gets it. So Emily and I are diving into the idea of downsizing the venue since our guest list has shrunk quite a bit. So here's the latest. My mom is officially uninvited from the wedding for the foreseeable future. About 2 weeks after she chose to skip the wedding, She dropped by and said she wanted to clear the air and discuss everything. We were totally on the same page and decided to invite her over for dinner. Emily whipped up a plate of food for her, and I couldn't help but ask if she was still set on skipping the wedding. She mentioned that even though she wants to move past it, she just can't seem to get over the fact that I didn't invite Jake due to a minor error. I pointed out that his blunder was proposing to my fiancée while I was sitting less than 3 feet away, and she brushed it off as just a joke. Emily questioned her reasoning for wanting to discuss things further when she was clearly sticking to her position about Jake attending the wedding. She mentioned wanting to chat with Emily, hoping that Emily would listen and convince me to invite Jake again. She seemed to think I was at work and that she'd have a chance to catch her by herself. Emily kindly explained that while she understood her perspective, she wouldn't have had that discussion without me there since it concerns my brother. So my mom dropped this comment about Emily being spineless and needing me to think for her, which kicked off a pretty intense argument among the three of us. Eventually, Emily just told her to leave. She stood up and headed for the door, while my mom trailed behind, still yelling at her. At this stage, she's screaming about how I'm destroying our family. As Emily was trying to unlock the front door, my mom suddenly yanked her hair and brought her down to the ground, still shouting. She went after her, trying to scratch her face, so I pulled her away and tossed her outside. She pounded on the door for a bit while I checked on Emily to make sure she was all right before she took off and kept calling us over and over. Once I confirmed that Emily was all right, I shot a message to my mom letting her know not to try contacting us again because we're done with that. I reached out to my dad and sisters to share what went down as well. My dad was caught off guard and started making excuses, claiming she had been under a lot of stress about the whole situation for some time. My sisters say they always knew she'd lose it eventually since she's always been a bit wild, and they mentioned they'd come by to check on Emily. I asked Emily if she wanted to take legal action, but she said no and just wanted to completely sever ties with her. I mentioned that it was pretty clear, but she really should reach out to the police since she was physically assaulted. The thing is, she doesn't want my mom to end up getting arrested. My sisters and Emily's mom swung by to check on her, and thankfully, she's holding up all right. My mom is on timeout from everything until Emily gives the green light. Honestly, I'm at a loss for what to do next. Emily is hesitant to involve the police because she feels guilty about the idea of having someone arrested for this. But my sisters and I are really pushing to change her mind. I think it's important to have some sort of documentation just in case anything happens down the line. Threads, where the original poster has chimed in. This whole situation could have been averted if Jake had just taken the time to sit down with your mom and own up to his actions. He totally could, but honestly, I doubt he even gets what accountability is all about. Honestly, I feel like he genuinely believes he's not connected to our mom's behavior. No matter how much I try to explain, I doubt anything I say will make him see that her actions are all about him and her own selfish interests. OOP replied on November 12th to someone suggesting that they should definitely consider pressing charges. Emily is still not in favor of formal charges, but after going through some of your comments together and having a lengthy discussion about the potential escalation, she has decided to have it documented with the police just to be safe. She's thinking about having a chat with my dad regarding the possibility of getting her back into therapy or some sort of treatment for her unpredictable behavior. So yeah, we're definitely going ahead with cutting off all contact. Just to clarify, here's a bit of context regarding my relationship with my parents. There were a few folks curious about my mom and why I chose not to be upfront with Emily regarding my relationship with my parents. I thought it might be helpful to share some context on why things are feeling so tense right now. As some of you pointed out, Jake was definitely the favorite. Jake was definitely my mom's favorite, and she made that pretty obvious. They hardly ever spent time with my sisters and me like typical parents do with their kids, unless it was absolutely necessary. But when it came to Jake, it was a different story. They would take him out shopping while we were left with a sitter, or they'd bring him home, his favorite food and toys from the store after shopping alone. He always seemed to have the latest and greatest, like brand new pricey clothes, while we were stuck with thrift store finds. And when it came to toys, he got shiny new ones just for himself, while we had to make do with the old ones we shared. When my sisters and I received gifts, they were meant for all of us to enjoy together. However, my mom was very specific that Jake's stuff was strictly his, and we were not allowed to mess with it. Whenever Jake messed up, I ended up facing the consequences for not being the ideal role model and not demonstrating the right way to act. So like Jake had this phase where he was just breaking his toys. And guess who got in trouble? Yep, me. Apparently he picked up that behavior from me. So there's this story about Jake when he was just 8 years old. He got into some serious trouble at school for attempting to shove a kid down the stairs. Wild, right? I got grounded for 2 weeks and was told to say sorry to the kid for not showing my brother the right way to do things. At 13, I really started advocating for my parents to give me an allowance. They were cool with it as long as I handled some chores around the house, like mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, raking leaves, and all that stuff. It typically ended up being about $25 each week to kickstart my savings. Jake noticed I was getting some cash and totally pleaded with my parents for an allowance as well. Rather than having him pitch in, I ended up giving him $10 from my allowance every week. We were handling our chores really well, but he never lifted a finger. Whenever I asked for his help, he'd just say it wasn't his responsibility, so why should he care? That's when I began to pull away from my brother more and more. When I got to high school, our conversations were pretty much limited to asking for little favors or when it was absolutely necessary to communicate. I landed my first job at 17 because I was eager to get my own car and earn some cash that I wouldn't have to hand over to Jake. My oldest sister, Rachel, totally came through for me by helping me set up my own bank account and teaching me the ropes on budgeting and saving my cash. Finally got my first car at 18 after putting in all that effort. Feels amazing. So when Jake finally got his license, my parents were like, hey, why not let him borrow your car for some extra driving practice? I didn't really want to, but I went along with it, and for a bit, everything was okay. Jake took my car for a spin when I wasn't using it and did a solid job keeping it in good shape. So he said he wanted my parents to get him a car, and then my mom came to me suggesting I should just give him mine since he apparently needed it more. Classic, right? When I said no, she threatened to boot me out. That night, we ended up in a fight, and it wrapped up with her handing my car over to Jake and taking me to sort out the ownership transfer to him in the next few days. I didn't really have any other options back then, so I just went ahead and signed it over. So when I graduated high school, my parents totally bailed on the ceremony. Jake thought it was a waste of time to sit through a long event just to watch me get a piece of paper, and my mom didn't want to leave him by himself for the night. Classic, right? Honestly, the only people I had backing me up were my sisters and my aunt and uncle, who were keen on taking me out. So they had to take me back home since my parents wanted to make it up to me with dinner. I had to skip dinner because my mom mixed shrimp and chicken on the same plate, and I'm allergic to shellfish. Total bummer. During my first year after high school, I juggled 2 jobs to save up for another car. When the new school year rolled around, I packed my bags for college and decided to cut ties with them. My mom and a few others attempted to connect with me through social media and Lily during the initial months, but I didn't reply. I even warned Lily that she'd be cut off if she continued to reach out. When she couldn't reach me via Lily, she attempted to go through my older sister Anna and a few times through Rachel and Jake until I had to threaten a restraining order for harassment. I totally faked it because I had no clue what I was doing, but it worked to scare her away. The best I got from her were just some happy holiday texts over the years. When I moved back, Anna mentioned that they had started seeing a family therapist, which was something Anna had asked for, and my parents were looking to apologize for how they had treated us. I was a bit unsure at first, but I went along with it as long as they promised to be real. The whole reconciliation thing kicked off when I returned home. That barely touches on all the stuff they put me through, and it took a ton of effort for me to even start considering letting them back into my life. When I met Emily, I had no clue about the direction my relationship with her was headed or what was happening with my parents. I really didn't want to bring up my family, mainly because I was prepared to sever ties again if it came to that. Emily totally got that it was a touchy topic and chose not to dig deeper. I really hope this clears up some of the questions that have been coming up lately. Threads where the original poster has chimed in about why OOP didn't make reconciliation contingent on them paying him back for the car. I wasn't about to fight tooth and nail for car reimbursement since the damage was already done. It's wild to think that Jake was the favorite, right? He was just an ordinary guy, nothing particularly re-Jakeable about him. I'm not trying to throw shade here. He was just an average kid. My parents didn't struggle with fertility. He wasn't some kind of miracle. He wasn't a financial solution, and they weren't facing marital issues that required a baby as a quick fix. He just came into the world, and suddenly they chose to shower him with more love than they ever did for us. Trust me, they didn't see this as normal at all. They just have a bit of a bias towards our parents, since they're our parents, and think there might be some good in them. Are you really convinced you weren't adopted? I'm a living organism. Looks like they had no choice but to accept me, even if they tried to resist. Haha. I used to justify their actions, but eventually I had to face the reality that they are just two individuals who really shouldn't have become parents. Here's the fourth update. I really appreciate all the advice and support I've received from everyone lately. Your kind messages and comments have meant a lot to me during this time. Jan and I have gone through the comments together, and we truly appreciate all of them. The simplest way to address the frequent question of why I decided to reconnect after all that's happened is that I would go to any lengths for my sisters. Anna really wanted everyone to be there for the birth of her first child, hoping to have the whole family around to support her during this big adjustment. She wasn't interested in having aunts and uncles who would just show up for birthdays and holidays, only to disappear the rest of the time. She was never one to ask for much while growing up. So when she finally asked if I would be willing to give it a shot for her, I said yes because it would bring her joy. I guess a part of me was holding out hope that they might have turned things around. I have no regrets about attempting to make things right. My parents are still awful, but I found the love of my life, so I'm counting it as a win. Some folks were curious if there's a go. Apologies if this comes off as chaotic or unclear. There's been a lot going on, so we went ahead and filed a report with the police. They mentioned that even though Jan isn't interested in taking it further, it's ultimately not our call to make. They said they'd consider our wishes, though. We shared some solid proof of the assault, including photos of Jan's face and text messages between my parents and me discussing the incident. We were told to keep track of and document any additional incidents involving my mom moving forward, just in case anything else comes up. Given our location, I really don't think it'll lead to anything, but hey, at least we have it documented. I received around 100 furious texts saying they at least had a conversation with her about what happened. My mom totally flipped it out on me when I was leaving my job, accusing me of trying to ruin her life. She was yelling at me, calling me a terrible son for wanting to get her arrested over what she thought was just a minor misunderstanding. She couldn't grasp why she was facing such consequences. I mentioned to her that if she wasn't a fan of being in legal hot water, then maybe she shouldn't have gone and hit Jan. She insisted that I tell the police to drop the report, but I wasn't having any of it. I explained to her precisely what the officer mentioned regarding it being beyond my control. She totally lost it in the parking lot and ended up hitting me a couple of times, just on the chest and arm, before security stepped in and took her away from the property. I had to have a chat with my boss about what went down. Fortunately, she totally got it after I laid out what was going down. So when I finally got back home, I filled Jan in on everything that went down. She was really frustrated and wanted us to talk about the plan with my family going forward. After a lengthy discussion, we took the advice of some online users and made the decision to cut off all contact with my family, except for my sisters. We both realized that having them around is just bringing extra stress for us, and we aren't even tied down yet. She mentioned that she was thinking about the idea of moving away to create some space between us and my family. She mentioned that she wants to avoid getting involved in my family drama since it's not her role, but she won't tolerate my mom's behavior or my dad's enabling of her abuse. There was definitely a lot more discussed, way too much to cover here, but I totally see her point that they're more hassle than they're worth. And honestly, I'm just over dealing with this situation. I also decided to go to therapy, and she's assisting me in finding a therapist. After our conversation, I made the choice to inform my dad that I would be cutting off contact. I called him, but he didn't pick up, so I left a message suggesting we have a deep conversation. When he called back, he wanted to know if it was cool for my mom to join the conversation. I let him know it was fine because she also needed to hear my side of things. The chat unfolded pretty much how you'd imagine it would. I let them know that Jan and I are done with them for good. My dad was really upset and wanted to understand why I would make that choice after all the effort we put into fixing our relationship. I let him know that this situation with Jake has made it clear that nothing is truly fixed between us. It feels like for them, everything revolves solely around my mom and my little brother. I let them know that their ongoing favoritism towards Jake has pushed our relationship past the point of no return. and I'm not keen on clinging to something that's clearly not working anymore. I let them know that I was on board with reconciling for Anna's benefit, but I can't stand the disrespect directed at me and Emily. I'm done tolerating it for both of our sakes. I told my mom that I'm fed up with her making me the scapegoat for her poor parenting and Jake's behavior. I made it clear that I could never let go of what she did to Emily and how she treated me and my sisters while we were growing up. She began to suggest that I should just move on like my sisters have, but I interrupted her and said she should take their forgiveness and move forward because she would never get it from me, especially after everything that's happened these past few weeks. She broke down in tears, questioning how I could see her as the bad guy. I let her know that the only person she should be upset with is herself, since I haven't done anything wrong. She broke down even more, expressing her deep regret about having me and claiming that I've done nothing but try to destroy her life. This sparked yet another intense debate between her and Emily, who didn't hold back in expressing her feelings, calling her all sorts of unflattering names for saying something like that to me. Not sure if she walked out or just chose to be quiet, but my mom went silent as soon as Emily finished her conversation with her. My dad expressed that he feels left out of my life, and he encouraged me to consider my mom's perspective. He mentioned that she was having a tough time too, dealing with her kids being at each other's throats, and that it wasn't right for me to penalize her for the challenges she faced in raising and caring for us. His final words were that we were a family and I shouldn't allow past mistakes to hold us back from progressing together. I made it clear to him that the only one she truly cared about was Jake, along with herself, and there was absolutely nothing he could say or do to sway my opinion. I let him know it was his choice to keep my number, but I was going to block him and my mom on all platforms and wouldn't be contacting him again. Then I ended the call. Later, I shot off a lengthy email to my whole family, including a link to my posts, letting them know they were uninvited to the wedding except for my aunt, uncle, and sisters. I hadn't shed a tear in ages, but Emily was there, holding me as I let it all out after sending the email. She kept reassuring me that we would be all right. My sisters hit me up after checking out the email. I told Anna I was sorry for not being able to keep reconciling the way she hoped, but she reassured me that it was fine and that it wasn't my fault I had to distance myself again. My family's reactions have been all over the place. Some people are really upset that I shared family problems on a public platform, while others are mad at my parents for not realizing how serious things were. The most recent person I had a deep conversation with was Jake. He wanted to know if I was cutting him off too, and I told him I wasn't, but I also made it clear that I wouldn't be making an effort to reach out to him either. He didn't put up a fight and simply wished me well for the wedding, and we haven't talked since. At the moment, Emily and I are on the hunt for a new place to call home. The idea is to relocate nearer to Emily's brother. He's around a 3-hour drive from us here, and Emily and I really dig the city he's in. I had a chat with my boss about the possibility of transferring, and Emily is exploring the idea of going fully remote, or maybe even hunting for a new job. And here we go again. Our venues have shifted once more. With the guest list being much smaller, my future brother-in-law is thinking about letting us use his Maplewood Lake house for our wedding. I'm not looking to share more on this unless something major happens, especially not until the wedding. I want to focus on moving forward, but I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Appreciate it and hope you have a great holiday season. So I finally got around to posting this after a few days of tweaking. I had to strip away some details before I could hit that submit button. If there's anything that's not clear, feel free to ask me as many questions as you want. Threads where the original poster has chimed in. Your mom could be on a mission to track down your new place. I can already feel the chaos that comes after a move. She's totally going to follow us when we move, because that's just how wild she is. When things don't go her way, she gets fixated until someone has to intervene. I chatted with a lawyer buddy to explore the option of getting a restraining order to prevent her from making any moves before she starts. Appreciate the good vibes. Wishing you all the best this holiday season. Did Mom check out what everyone was saying? Lily says she's read plenty of them and finds it amusing that random people online think they can judge her character. Lol, I feel like there's no fixing what's inside me anymore. I hope they find happiness, just as long as it's nowhere near me and my family.